Hi, I'm Suzanne Jones, and I coordinate the Child Passenger Safety and Occupant Protection Project at the Maryland Institute for Emergency Medical Services Systems. This project is a grant funded by the Maryland Highway Safety Office. The goals of this presentation are to teach the importance of child safety seats and seatbelts, to state Maryland's laws about child passenger safety and adult passengers, describe the limits of what emergency department staff can do legally on child passenger safety, and to go over the process of this project to provide hospital emergency departments with car seats for families in emergency need. Why is child passenger safety important? Unfortunately, children continue to die and be injured in motor vehicle crashes. Across the U.S. in 2021, over 700 children under the age of 13 died in crashes. On average, every 30 seconds, a child is involved in a motor vehicle crash, and each day 2 children are killed in riding in cars. In Maryland in 2024, we had 569 fatal crashes of children and adults, and almost 30,000 motor vehicle injuries that were serious enough that there was a hospitalization. Why else is this a serious problem? Well, where we know whether seatbelts or car seats were used in crashes, about a third of the children that were killed were unrestrained in the vehicle. And the proportion of those killed who were not restrained increased with each age group. Minority children have higher proportions of unrestrained child deaths compared with white children, and studies show that the misuse rates of safety seats is at least 73%. This slide shows the problem of restraint use in Maryland across all ages. This video is called 3 Stages of a Collision.
When one vehicle collides with another vehicle or object, the damages go far beyond bent metal and broken headlights. There are actually 3 stages of a typical collision. Each stage is unique and occurs quickly. The higher the speed, the more severe the outcome. The vehicle itself is the first to take the impact of a collision. Coming to an abrupt stop, the vehicle buckles and bends. This all happens in about 1/10 of a second. Following the vehicle crash is the human crash. The occupants hit some part of the vehicle, hopefully the safety belt and airbags. If the occupants are not wearing safety belts, they will continue traveling at the same speed as the vehicle was traveling, slamming into the dashboard, windshield, or some other part of the vehicle's interior. They may even collide with other passengers. When the occupant's body has come to an apparent stop, the internal organs are still moving, hitting other organs or bones in the body. This internal crash, though silent and not visible to the naked eye, can cause fatal injuries. Statistically, it's highly likely that you will be involved in several collisions during your lifetime. If you're lucky, the only damage sustained will be to your vehicle. Remember, a preventable collision is a collision in which the driver fails to do everything reasonable to avoid it.
So that video gave a good summary of what really happens in a crash and why being restrained in a car can make a huge difference. But just to summarize the key points here, there really are 3 collisions in a crash. The first is the vehicle hitting something and coming to a stop or a slowdown. The second is the people inside the vehicle hitting something else. It could be hitting the inside of the vehicle, it could be hitting each other. If they're ejected, it's hitting the windshield and possibly the roadway. The third is the internal crash, where organs inside the body are moving fast enough and then suddenly abruptly stopping with a collision that there can be tissue damage. Children in crashes are much more vulnerable to injury because they have the huge, heavy head, particularly the younger they are. This also means a higher center of gravity. Their skull bones are still soft. They have weak neck and abdominal muscles, and their hip bones are rounded. So for older children, this is an issue with their lap belt not staying down low over their hips. In cars, there are adult safety features that can hurt a child. For instance, airbags. If you put a rear-facing seat in the front seat of a vehicle and you have a head-on collision, your airbag will deploy with enough force that it could kill a rear-facing child. Loose, unused seatbelts have been wrapped around kids' necks by themselves and pose a strangulation hazard. And then seatbelts in general, if they're worn by children who are too small and need to be in car seats, they can be a danger to the children. So the solution to motor vehicle deaths and injuries is child safety seats and seatbelts. And here are some of the numbers indicating the effectiveness of these devices. Child safety seats specifically prevent injury by spreading the crash forces out, concentrating the forces on the strongest parts of the child's body, allowing the child to ride down the crash, providing protection for the child's head, neck, and spinal column, and this is particularly true with the rear-facing seats, and in general, keeping the child from being ejected from the car or colliding with things in the car. So let's change gears for a minute and talk about Maryland's child passenger safety law, and this was updated in 2022. Maryland's law says that every child under 8 must ride in an appropriate child safety seat or booster seat. Additionally, children under age 2 must ride rear-facing. There are a few exemptions, and these are really for kids who are, in the 99th percentile for height or weight. So one would be if the child was heavy enough to exceed the rear-facing car seat's limits before age 2, then they could go forward-facing sooner. And then for coming out of a booster seat, if the child is 4'9" or taller before the age of 8. But again, those are the pretty rare child. The adult laws continue with children ages 8 through 16 have to be in a car seat, booster, or seatbelt in every seating position. Occupants 16 years and older must be correctly buckled in all seating positions. And each person who is not buckled may receive a ticket of $83. All right, switching again, let's talk a little bit about what hospital staff can or should do in their jobs regarding child passenger safety. So staff can educate caregivers on reading their car seat manuals and labels and help them look online for resources. If their hospital policy allows them to, they can help the parents with harnessing their child in the seat, adjusting the harnesses so that they fit the kid, getting them ready for when the car seat goes out to the car. They should be referring them elsewhere for installation help. Installation help needs to come from a child passenger safety technician or CPST. These folks, these technicians have gone through a certification program, a 32-hour class, so they do know how to install seats, and that is their job to help parents, but really their job is still to educate parents, not do it for them. The parent or the caregiver's responsibilities are to have an appropriate car seat ready for discharge. If they have a newborn, they need to bring it into the hospital for discharge, or in case the baby's going to have the car seat tolerance screen test done. It is their job to install the seat in the vehicle. Hospital staff should never provide guidance or assistance if you're unsure of best practices. Refer to a child passenger safety technician. What if the parent or guardian interferes with the execution of best practices? You've probably had this happen before with different topics, but your first goal is to protect the child. Do your best to secure compliance with best practices and the law. Your secondary goal is to protect yourself in the hospital. You're probably going to need to have the parent or guardian sign a waiver indicating that they were offered the best advice or assistance and they declined it. Okay, let's talk about correct car seat use. And as child passenger safety technicians know, these are all the things that we cover when we help parents with their car seats. I'm only going to touch upon key features with these sections here in this presentation. So selecting the appropriate seat, there's really 4 steps for kids. They include rear facing, forward facing, booster use, and seatbelt use. So rear facing car seats, these are for children from birth to at least age 2 or continuing beyond age 2 until the child reaches the rear facing convertible or all-in-one car seat's height and weight limits. So for instance, a child could be in an infant seat, the carrier type, from birth to usually about age 1, and then they switch to using a convertible seat or an all-in-one seat, but use it rear facing till at least the child is age 2 or until they meet the maximum height or weight limits for using that seat rear facing. When a child is at least age 2 and weighs at least 26.5 pounds, or they have outgrown their rear-facing convertible or all-in-one seat by height or weight, they may switch to forward-facing use of their car seat, where they're using it with a harness. And then they would continue to use this until ideally they reach the car seat's forward-facing height or weight limits, which is often 65 pounds. The next step would be booster seat use, and boosters are basically a car seat that helps the seatbelt, the adult seatbelt, to be worn by the child but positioned properly on their body. So it's really a transition from a harness seat to the vehicle's lap and shoulder belts. There's a minimum child weight of 40 pounds before they can go into a booster seat, but really most kids should wait until they're about 50 pounds, ideally by 5 years old too, or later than that even, because kids younger than that may not be behaviorally ready to be in a booster. You can climb out of a booster seat. The seatbelt harness is not locked. Well, it's not the seatbelt. The seatbelt itself is not locked. So you could climb out of it if you aren't mature enough to stay put in the booster. And a child could use either a high back booster or a backless booster. The final stage would be a child moves into the lap and shoulder belt. And if you recall, Maryland's law says that you can't have a child in the seat belt until age 8 or at least 4 feet 9 inches tall. But the best way to know whether your child is ready to fit a seatbelt is by following the 5-step test. And most kids really are not going to be able to pass the 5-step test for seatbelt fit until they're something like 10, 11, 12 years old. So here's the criteria for the seatbelt fit test. Can the child sit all the way back against the vehicle seat with their knees bent at the edge of the seat, their shoulder belts crossing mid-shoulder, their lap belt is staying low, touching their thighs, so it's really over their pelvic bones, not over their belly. And can the child stay seated like this for the whole trips? So if any of the answers to these questions are no, then a child has to go back to a booster seat for safety. And why is this so important? Well, focusing just on the lap belt for a minute, if a lap belt rides up over the child's belly and they're in a crash, they are quite at a high risk for suffering spinal cord injuries. What about special needs children traveling in cars? Well, there are lots of devices that can work to protect children of any condition in cars. And so please, if you have questions on that, my contact information is at the end, and I'd be glad to tell you more about that. Continuing on with elements of correct use, let's briefly talk about location in the vehicle. No children in rear-facing car seats should ever be in the front seat due to the airbag risk. Some of the older vehicles, you can turn off the airbags, but it's just such a huge risk that really kids need to be in the back seat. And it's recommended that children sit in the back seat until they're at least 13 years old. The center of the back seat is the farthest from most crashes, but you can't always install a car seat there properly with both the latch or the seatbelt system, or there may just not be enough room to put somebody in the middle in the back seat. And often there are multiple kids or there's pets in the car, so it might be a little more complicated as to who sits where to be the safest. Continuing with elements of correct use, let's briefly talk about installation. So someone did the math that there's not over 90,000 possible car seat vehicle unique seating position combinations in just the US. What this means is it's really very complicated to know a lot about car seats and be able to give information. And that's why it is the parent or caregiver's responsibility to install the seat. And only currently certified child passenger safety technicians can help parents install seats. Again, though, these technicians, if they're doing their job properly, they should be instructing the parents so that the parents can then do it themselves. Anyone who's not a technician can educate parents on reading the car seat manuals and labels and looking online for resources. And finally, with elements of correct use, we talk about child being secured in the car seat. So you really do need to check the labels on the seat or the car seat manual to figure out how to use the seat given the child's height and weight. A lot of the seats come with inserts or pillows, and those may have some very specific rules for when they are to be used or not used. And you need to find out how high the shoulder part of the harness strap should be relative to the child's shoulders, and then how to adjust it for that particular car seat. So the general rule with harnessing is that for rear-facing kids, the straps need to come out of the car seat shell at or below their shoulder height. And then for forward-facing kids, the straps would come out of the car seat shell at or above their shoulder height. And there can be different ways to move these harness straps. Another common adjustment is the crotch strap or the buckle strap, and this should be closest to the child without the child actually sitting on it. So check your manual to see how to adjust this. After the child is in the seat, these harnesses need to be tightened on the child. So how tight is tight enough? Well, we do what we call the pinch test, so that you try to grab some of the harnessing near the child's collarbone, try to pinch it together, and if it's snug enough, your fingers should just slide off. If you can pinch some, like in this picture, then it's too loose. So ultimately, the straps need to be snug. I like to tell parents that they should be like giving your child a hug. So you can't pinch any slack, and your child cannot lean forward in the straps. Finally, after you have buckled the child and snugged things up, you want to slide that chest clip up to armpit level. So once again, what is the role of staff, hospital staff? It really is to educate the caregivers on basic messages and help them install, I take that back, you can't help them install, help them harness their child in the car seat if your hospital policy permits that. And then you want to be referring a caregiver for installation help. So with this project to provide car seats to Maryland hospitals, and with this presentation specifically for emergency departments, these are the elements that are part of the program. You will receive at least one convertible, one combination seat, and a backless booster for your emergency department, and possibly an infant seat. You could get more than that of these types, depending on your needs. And you will get replacement seats as needed. We will give you guidelines for distributing the car seats and boosters, educational materials for families that you can give out, or resources so that you can copy them and then give them out. There are waiver forms for the caregiver, referral for other sources for personal car seat help, and a brief evaluation. Let me go over a few of these in more detail. So first, let's talk about eligibility. Before a caregiver, a patient is discharged, caregivers need to be advised to have an appropriate car seat ready for discharge. But what if they don't have one? You encourage them to go get one or to call somebody to bring one for them to use. But what if you've tried all of these things and they just still cannot get a car seat? Then they may be eligible for getting a free seat. If they truly can't afford one, that would make them eligible, and here's some criteria for that. Or maybe they do have a car seat, but it's an inappropriate and unsafe seat, and they cannot replace it by discharge time. That would be a reason to give them a seat. If they were in a crash where the child was transported via medevac, and the family can't get another car seat prior to discharge. So the crash thing is a little bit more complicated than just any family can get a new car seat if they're in a crash, because there is criteria for when a car seat can be reused after a crash, and this table describes that in that upper box. So if it really was a minor fender bender, it's quite possible that the car seat is fine to be used further. The family should go to the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration's website to see the guidelines for when a car seat can be used after a crash. But even a crash seat is much safer than no crash seat. Okay, now you're going to talk to the families about which seat is appropriate for the child. And one of the resources you will get will be this chart, and it'll be laminated, and this helps you identify which seat you should give out based on the child's age or weight. And this is really set up for thinking about what the child needs today, but will also be useful for them for the next year or so. You want to educate the family about using their car seat, and I don't expect you to be experts on that car seat or car seats in general, so we've tried to make this easy for you, that there are handouts, there are laminated resources, there are QR codes that the family can use their phone to access some short videos to train them on car seat use. And then there's just various handouts that you will have. Many of these are available in English and Spanish. As I mentioned, you can help them adjust the harnesses to fit their child. So if they're just getting this new seat, it's quite possible they're going to have to make some adjustments to how the seat is to fit their child. And if your hospital allows it, you can do that, or you can help them find the pages in their manual so that they do all of the adjustment. Next, you want to have them fill out the waiver form, and this is what the waiver form looks like. You would fill out the top of it. They can print their name, or you can print it for them. But you need to find the label on the car seat that indicates the manufacturer, the name of the car seat, the model number, and the date of manufacture. This is also on the warranty card that comes attached to a brand new car seat. So that's the easiest place to find all this information. But you would write that in here. You would write down which child is going to use the car seat, their age, their weight, their height, and then put your name down for healthcare provider assisting. The family would read the gray section, the waiver statement, and then they would sign and date it. And then you need to return this to me. You can scan it. I would keep a copy in the patient's medical record and or a file just with the car seats that you have for this program, and then send me a copy of this waiver form. This form is also available in Spanish. It'll be on English on one side, Spanish on the back side of the form. And there's also something that will be in your guidelines that is a discharge against best practice waiver that you can use if the family really isn't willing to follow best practice. Okay, as I said, you would send these waiver forms to me, ideally right after you give out a car seat, or if you need to bunch them and send them to me once a month or something, that's possible too. You can scan it and send it to me via email. You could also take a photo of it and send me the photo. I won't share this information with anyone else. Final step with this is to refer caregivers for installation assistance. And in Maryland, the best place to refer them is to Maryland Kids and Safety Seats. They are the statewide agency. They are based out of the state health department. And if there is a local resource with technicians in your community, they will guide the family to that local resource. So this is what you want to be referring them to. So hopefully we're ready for discharge. The child is in their new seat and they're all ready to go home. One other thing that you will find with this project is a couple times a year I will send a very short evaluation form for the project, and I need this to keep the project going, to show my grant funders how successful we are with this program. So if you could fill this out and get this back to me promptly, that is very helpful. And as I said, if you are ready to get your car seats or you need more car seats or educational materials, please let me know. This is my name and how you can contact me. The easy way to get a hold of me is CPS for Child Passenger Safety at MIEMSS.org. MIEMSS is MIEMSS.org. Thank you, and I look forward to working with you on this project.